Hello everyone, Charcoal here, and welcome to another discussion video. Today I want to take a look at a rather obscure part of Wings of Fire that I don't feel is talked about enough. The Winglets, a series of short stories that put the spotlight on minor characters in various periods of the series' timeline. 4 of them were released throughout 2015 and 2016, and until last year they were more or less ebook exclusive, hence why not as many people have read them. So I'm going to shine some light on these by ranking them, worst to best. My bottom pick would have to be the first winglet, Prisoners. I wouldn't even call this one bad, just meh. It's apparent Tui was still getting used to the shorter format, but in hindsight you want the first one to be the worst you produce to show improvement. That doesn't save it from some pitfalls though, mainly having to do with Fierce Teeth. She just isn't a very likable character, and the backstory doesn't help because it's told from a first-person point of view directly from Fierce Teeth herself, so the other characters don't get much of a chance to shine. Speaking of other characters, Fierce Teeth is yet another victim of the forced love interest club. With her brains and Strong Wing's lack thereof, it comes off less like she's actually in love with him and more like she's manipulating him. And I shouldn't need to tell you why that's not okay. All that being said though, I feel like Prisoners is mainly there to test out the new format and not do anything too ambitious with it yet, so a relatively simple story was chosen for it. And on that front, it was fine. It did what it set out to do, but it was nothing spectacular. Legends Darkstalker is hands down my favorite book in the series, but one of the few gripes I had with it was that Arctic and Foeslayer's relationship in the prologue felt very rushed. The number 3 pick, Runaway, fixed that, and it didn't do much else. Okay, maybe that's a stretch. It tried to do a lot, giving us 2 romance plots at once despite being only 50 pages, one of which being the first confirmed same-sex relationship in the series, but mainly it was supposed to make Arctic and Foeslayer more believable, and while I think it managed to do that in a way that I was satisfied with, it was only barely. Foxflake is cute and all, but I feel like the story was a bit too distracted with them to really stick the landing on its main objective. But there are some things I like that place it above Prisoners. For one, we got to see Arctic's younger, more rebellious self. It's a nice contrast to the grumpy, practically abusive stickler we see in Darkstalker. And the new characters in Snowflake and Snowfox were nice, like I said before, I just wish the story didn't spend as much time on them. Overall, I'd say Runaway is just decent. Not a bad end to the Winglets, but it still pales in comparison to the top 2 entries. The number 2 pick is Winglets number 2, Assassin. I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan of Deathbringer in the main series, but here in his own Winglet, he's awesome. I love his struggle of following orders versus his own emotions getting the better of him. Why do you think I chose the most pivotal moment in his character arc to turn into a map? The story also gives us some extra history for the Sandwing War via the Mudwings originally being allied with Blister instead of Burn. I would have preferred to see this get touched on in the main series instead, but hey, better late than never. Overall, Assassin is a very good winglet, and one that I highly recommend you read if you haven't already. But there is still one more slot on this list. There's only one thing it could be, so... The best winglet, in my opinion, is Winglets number 3, Deserter. This is what I would call the perfect winglet. It shines light on an underused side character, adds some much needed depth to a long forgotten character, and even develops a more current character. Starting with the protagonist, Six Claws, this guy clocked in at number 3 in my top 5 favorite characters video, and this book is exactly why. His arc revolves around learning to make his own decisions instead of blindly following what everyone else tells him, and that hit disturbingly close to home for me. But wait, wasn't that Deathbringer's arc in the last winglet? Yes it was, but more on that later. Let's talk about Dune now. It was awesome to see his younger self, and the contrast between the optimistic young Dune and the grumpy old Dune we see in the Dragonette Prophecy is like night and day. But this book gives us an explanation as to why that is, and it plays into Six Claws' story by getting him to act and remove Dune from a horrible situation. Speaking of which, it's time to discuss Deathbringer. Deserter is sort of a sequel to Assassin in that it pays off the promise Deathbringer made to himself at the end of that winglet. Having Deathbringer of all people be the one to give Six Claws advice was honestly so clever. He's already gone through a similar struggle, but he realized his mistake too late and lost someone close to him as a result. So now he's trying to help Six Claws before something similar happens to him. This shows a lot of growth from Deathbringer and triggers a lot of growth for Six Claws. It's so poetic. But the biggest point in Deserter's favor is the shorter length. For Prisoners, I said Tui was still getting used to the format, and the story itself didn't end up doing much. On the other side of the spectrum, there's Runaway, which I feel tried to do too much. Deserter found that sweet spot right in the middle. There's enough plot to keep the story moving without having anything feel too slow or pointless, but not so much that it feels rushed. I'll say it again, Deserter is the perfect winglet, and I dare say I'd rank it as my second or third favorite Wings of Fire story ever. Definitely worth a read. Now it's fan art time. We've got pieces from Malibu, Penguin Lover, and Little Lazy Leo. Thank you guys so much, and as always, you can submit your own art in my Discord server. I want to apologize real quick for the lack of uploads, but as I said in my last video, I'm in college now, so I'm a lot busier. Anyway, this has been Wings of Charcoal, and I will see you all in the next video. And hold on to your tails, because the next video will be the official launch of my new series, Possibilities. See you there.